Now we have Mr. Amit Chandra Garu, who is going to speak on sustainable development and quality education, ways to improve educational outcomes. Mr. Amit Chandra is a social development professional with expertise on policy solutions to some of the most pressing issues of the time, such as school education, urban livelihood, and governance. I request Mr. Amit Chandra Garu to take his seat on the dais. And I request Manoj Kumar Garu, grassroots worker in educational field, to take a seat on the dais.
So, couple of things before I start talking. And number one, instead of talking, lecturing, I would love to make it a as much possible interactive session. So, I don't really want to speak what I have to talk. I want to get questions from all of you so that I can speak what you have in mind, right? That's point number one. A disclaimer, or let me take permission from the organizers to completely and openly speak my mind. Can I do that?
Yes.
Right? Okay, so disclaimer is some of those things I might talk might sound like very insensitive, but I think it's the need of the hour that we must be doing it. So my only a couple of statements that let me make, and let me take your questions. So my first thing is, when we are talking about SDG, right? So let's keep SDG for the time being aside. Let's try to understand how is our education system designed and what is it resulting into. We identify the problem. So we have to diagnose the problem well. Until we have done the good diagnosis, no matter what reform we propose, it's not going to help. As clear as that. Now in terms of diagnosis and my indication of a problem in education system, let's say, which is the latest phone, most sellable phone, more desirable phone in the market?
iPhone.
Let's say iPhone 11. Okay. So let's say you placed an order from Amazon, Flipkart or Apple website, an order for an Apple iPhone brand new. It was delivered to your place. You looked at the packet. It's very well packed. It's the highly very well quality packing done. But when you opened the box, you found there is no phone. There is some Mysore sandal soap. What would you call that?
Cheating.
Cheating? Fraud?
It's complaint for right.
Okay. This is what I call our Indian education system, a fraud. Now you ask me why and I'll keep giving you arguments. You know, these are what I can call value addition. Value adds that you get. So let's say you buy a movie ticket, you get popcorn for free. Who doesn't want it, right? It's good. But you have to be very objective as to what is the purpose of education. Why are you going to that school, or why are you affiliated taking a course in CBSE board school? The learning, right? Is that learning happening? If not, then all the yoga and additional value adds that you are giving is not as worthwhile. It's not as valuable. So the first thing is, what is the objective? If you are getting good learning, 100% well. But let me tell you CBSE, why I would call CBSE another big fraud. The way CBSE system is designed, it makes sure that only rich can get good education, so-called good education, not poor. Why? The first criteria, if you want to open, let's say you want to start a new school, you want to affiliate with CBSE, the first requirement is the infrastructure requirement, which says if you want to open a school in urban area, you will require minimum 1.5 acres of land. If it is a rural area, 3 acres of land. Think about this Rangareddy district or Hyderabad district, where you would find 1.5 acre land. If it is a 12th standard school, you require at least 20 classrooms. Your investment will be, let's say, 30 to 50 crore. You are not going to provide education with 500 rupees per month fee. Why do you really require affiliation to CBSE? If the board is simply open, that anyone, no matter study from wherever, Whether you go to a CBSE affiliated school, ICSE, state board, or you learn by yourself. You take this CBSE exam, you get the certificate. CBSE doesn't open its board to all. And therefore I call CBSE anti-poor board.
Okay, that is accepted, sir. That is 100% accepted as per what explanation you have given. But I have one obligation in the point what you have made it, sir. See, everything has a requirement, right, sir? Now, if you are going for a job, obviously you will be tested for your eligibility. So even a CBSE school also has an eligibility that it needs to have 1.5 acres of land, or else if it's a rural area, it needs 3 acres of land. Or else, sir, you have been seeing many. You told you'll be talking openly.
Yeah.
Even I'm also making an open statement.
Right.
If you have seen Chaitanya, Narayana, E-Techno schools or the colleges, whatever it is just developed in a apartment, sir, where there is no even so-called, you can't even breathe with the fresh air, sir. There are no windows even.
Agree?
So, do you expect that even CBSE school should also be placed in an apartment or somewhere kind of places where you feel so frustrated and irritated, so sophisticated area?
It's agree. It's exactly like asking, do I like or enjoy seeing people living in slums? I don't. So do they have choice?
No, sir. So that is what I'm telling you, sir. If there is something, obviously there will be a requirement. That is what I'm telling you. I just have an obligation with the point you have made, but I'm completely alright with the CBSE, so-called, you call it a fraud. I'm acceptable with the explanation what you have given it.
Sorry, I'm also taking a little extreme position and going to call almost everything fraud, because my idea is also in 50 minutes as a policy expert, I can't give you all the tools to evaluate policies. So this should be at least thought-provoking, and you guys should at least start thinking and recognizing the problem, the big elephant in the room. When we recognize the problem, then we can step towards solving it. As long as we are shying away from recognizing the problem, we can't even solve it, right? That's my concern. Anyways, next question.
Yeah, hello sir. Thiru here with you.
Hi.
So hi. So my basic question actually, I think everybody have the same doubt, whatever doubt I have. So if we can talk about education system in India, I think it's, if I'm going to establish a school or college or anything, so it should be a non-profitable, right? If I'm not wrong. So if it is in a profit, so if it is in a profit position, so it can be considered as a business, or it can be a, social activity.
Yes.
Okay, so here the question is, here my question is, whom should I blame? Now if we can talk about techno schools or international schools or central schools or state schools or whatever. So if we can talk about a simple LKG students, I think they are paying almost 1 lakh or 1.5 lakhs per year, which is not for a technical student. If you can talk about engineering student, so engineering student can pay almost 50,000 or 1 lakh per year.
Still that is a fraud.
Yes, if we can talk about it, LKG student, so it's the parents are paying more than 1 lakh per year.
So what is your question?
Should I blame here parent? Should I blame college management? Should I blame government, or should I blame policy making? Whom should I blame here?
No
And
one.
who has to take responsibility?
We all will have to take responsibility as a citizen, because we feed to the same system which does fraud to us.
Okay, but okay, let's say if I have a child, so I have to send her to maybe a government school or whatever. So it's basically completely depends on my economy, right? If I have more money, I can send it to the any international school or any higher than that.
Right. That's
right.
true.
So if I don't have money, so my child should study in only government school. So can't we change to all schools in a single level? So is that any possibility?
Okay. That will do further more harm than good. Right? So first thing is, you will have to identify, all of us will have to identify why there is so much of distinction between different kinds of education. And it's not only that within the private you have a school which charges 200 rupees and you have a school which charges 2 lakh rupees. Within the government also happens. If you look at Navodaya Vidyalaya, their per child expenditure is much higher than a usual municipal corporation school in Delhi, right? Or in Mumbai. By the way, when it comes to profit or not for profit, for me, it's as simple. I am spending 100 rupees for the education of my child. For me, it doesn't matter who is the provider. It's a for-profit or not-for-profit. From that, my 100 rupees is providing education as also making 10 rupees as a profit, I don't mind. Compared to 100 rupees I am giving to some other not-for-profit organization which is going in loss, right? For me, it's 100 rupees as an expenditure. So you think that objectively. For an example, currently, we all would have heard about Delhi education reform model, right?
No,
Yes.
I was just thinking to ask
Yes.
you about that.
Yes.
Because as a grassroots worker, I go to schools every week, and
Yes.
I work in 25 government schools throughout Telangana, Andhra. So you are telling that education system is completely fraud, and this last elections, if we see recently in last 10-15 days, so education was on a complete election was completely on education.
Yes.
Delhi voters turned completely on education policy. That was very wonderful set up by Delhi government. So you are telling it is a fraud. Indian education system is entirely
Right.
fraud. So
Right.
Delhi education system is also a fraud,
Furthermore, a bigger one.
a bigger fraud.
Yes.
Guys, do you
More
agree with that?
efficiently done. Actually, let me emphasize on when first time I made this statement, it is a fraud. What all I meant. I gave you this example of Apple iPhone, right? You open the box, you find some soap there. You don't really find education. So first thing is, what do I mean? What I mean is today you might get a certificate, and I'm not talking particularly about this institution where we are hosting maybe doing a wonderful job. What is on an average happening? Let me give you an example. There was a government job advertised in UP, in Uttar Pradesh. The job was, there were 60 positions. The job was for the peon, and the minimum qualification was fifth passed out. How many applications they received? 93,000. 93,000 candidates applied for the job of peon, 60 positions. Out of those 93,000, 3,700 were PhD holders. Many of them, above 10,000, were MBAs and engineering graduates. That's my first example. So which simply means you would have received a PhD degree or engineering or MBA degree, but you have not received that knowledge, that the real product. You just got a certificate which was a very well wrapped. That's number one. Now why is that happening? There was a study done by, I think the company name was Aspire Mind or something, which says roughly 94% of engineering graduates in India are unemployable.
Correct.
Why is that happening at a senior education, higher education level? Because your primary school education is also broken. Have you guys heard of all of those working on at grassroots level? ASER would have heard the name of this ASER report.
Yes.
Done by Pratham. What Pratham does, learning outcome assessment. What is their finding? Roughly around 60% students of 6th grade cannot do basic language and maths of 2nd grade. So your primary education is broken, therefore your higher education is broken, and therefore you land into jobless situation, right? Doesn't that annoy you? Doesn't make you angry? Doesn't you think that something has to be done? In fact, to the extent, and all of this pressure, still building pressure, so something artificial being sold to you and make it compulsory. Now it's mandatory, you have to go through this system, you can't say no, right? Anyways, on daily I say it is further bigger fraud, more efficiently done, and therefore if we take that as a learning experience, I'll say you can win election only through PR agencies. There was so far all the claims what are the claims that they are making?
So they said that they'll provide quality education, improving
Okay.
the infrastructure,
Okay.
getting good outcomes, set up good school management committees.
Okay, let's go one by one. And I will give them a due credit where I think they have done well. First thing is infrastructure, right? What was the promise they had made in their manifesto as an infrastructure? Anyone remembers that? No, so in 2015 when they were contesting election, their promise was 500 new schools. How many they opened?
50.
Hardly 5. But here I would also say that they did what they did was right, practically right. Why? Because I said Delhi does not have its own board, educational board. It has been union territory, therefore it follows CBSE. I told you the land norms. If you want to open 500 schools, you would require 800 acres of land roughly, and the huge investment which they would have realized that they cannot get it, and therefore it is wiser to go back from on their promise and not to open their school. Yes, I will give credit. What they did is they have added roughly what they say 5,000. Now here is also misleading data. Some report says 5,000 school, 8,000 school, 10,000 school, 12,000 school. Classrooms that they have added. So number one, there also it lacks credibility. But as a policy perspective, if I go, I will ask first my objective question. Was there some kind of survey done to identify how many classrooms are needed, or it's being built on whims and fancy, where it is required, where not? I have not found any such kind of assessment done, right? Then you continue to add classroom, well, which is in spending on infrastructure is one of the most favorite thing of all the governments all the time. Why? We all know you build big infrastructure, you make big money. I think that is a good enough indication to know. So in terms of infrastructure, learning outcome they never talk about. So when I talked about Asar report, after Asar report when the Delhi government, and I also had a higher hope from the new Delhi government actually, and later on I got disappointed. So they did their own learning achievement assessment, like similar to Asar. And their finding was that the learning level in Delhi students is further bad. Their own report says roughly 70% of 6th grade students cannot do basic language and math of 2 standard, 2nd grade, right? So further bad. And therefore what they launched is a scheme called Chunauti. So Chunauti was for graded learning. That they will identify students at their learning level and teach accordingly. This was done for 4th, 5th and 6th standard student. But now after 4 or 5 years, you don't hear what happened to Chunauti. What was the outcome of the entire exercise? Did they received the learning level? You don't hear. And to make up on, possibly they were not able to improve the learning quality, what they launched, there is a theory in policy making what we call bootlegger and Baptist, right? So what they did, they launched happiness curriculum. The Dalai Lama was invited to launch the happiness curriculum, so they are saying now we are teaching students to be happy, forget the learning outcome. This is another way of doing the fraud. So you wanted to give, buy phone, you didn't give phone, so you say, okay, I give you free Wi-Fi. You have completely changed the objective of the exercise. Wouldn't you call it a fraud?
So actually, as per your words, so I can understand you're just blaming completely faculty, I believe, right? So if faculty is not teaching in a proper way, student cannot learn. Is it right?
Right, yes. So teacher have to. This is another thing, and it's not only Delhi government. I have nothing like, the central government, other state governments also. I said UP also. Let me tell you another. So what I'm saying is the system, the way it has been designed and being executed, it actually ends up doing fraud some kind or the other. The education system itself has become a huge source of corruption. As I told you about infrastructure. Now let me give you another data. CAD, you guys know about CAD, Controller and Auditor General of India?
Yeah.
So there is state bodies also which does audit of all the government expenditure. When they were doing an audit for UP as a state government, they estimated that there are roughly 1.11 crore ghost students in Uttar Pradesh primary schools. Only at primary level, primary meaning 1 to 5 May, there are 1.11 crore host students enrollment. What does that mean? Fake enrollment, just to show up that there are students there, so that you can eat away all their benefits which is resigned. Now
No,
do the
this-
rough estimation.
This Aadhaar card enrollment, is there no?
This is what post Aadhaar only they realize that there is this big post enrollment. So Aadhaar is helping to clean system slowly and slowly. And it was not only in UP. Pick up any other state and you'll find the same thing happening. Now let me give you a rough estimate when I say how it has increased corruption. We know that how many free goodies in a school is distributed to all the children. There are midday meals, uniform, shoes, stationery, scholarship, what not. There are altogether 14 things which is given for free. Forget 14, let me calculate just one, midday meal. Let's assume minimum it costs 10 rupees per child to feed that midday meal. 1.11 crore. Roughly 10 crore every day going as a corruption money, right? Roughly. Which means 300 crore in a month, which means 36,000 crore in a year just going as a corruption money to someone else's pocket only through midday meal scheme. Now you can estimate the size of corruption being done on many other expenditures.
No, I had some point on this. Like government doing this midday meals, like it's like government is not. It's like a business. No, you give 10 crores, so the 10 crores should be perfectly utilized. No, it's because it's about there are some children they come to schools only because of midday meals.
Right? Which
Yeah.
is fine. So I'm not against midday meal. I'm saying give that midday meal to the student. You are saying someone else is
Yeah.
eating that midday meal.
So I just I have some lot of questions, but I'll just ask the people to shoot or ask the questions.
I think
A very good afternoon, sir. I'm Vamsi Krishna.
Yes, please.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
One
please.
side we support industrialization. One side we want to achieve sustainable development goals. One side we want development. But the industrialists and industries run to the areas which are already developed, where there are plenty water resources. But they won't look for backward areas. And we want development goals, and we want to preserve our resources, water resources, all the resources, energy resources we have. And we want development.
Right?
How can we tackle this issue? Another thing, sir. How can we make a good policy for balanced regional development?
So I think both your questions then are interrelated, right? It is as simple as that. The development, the growth, it finally percolates down to people. It's simple, balanced growth. So one thing is you will have to first identify what is a balanced growth, right? And whether can it be done on the cost of growth itself. So instead of it becoming the ideal to make sure that there is parity of the growth happening, cutting down on where it is happening itself. Now the market has its own mechanism, right? Like we had a session on entrepreneurship. So they will find out, they will go to places, because all of these places where there is a so-called access to resources, etc., developed, grown up places, the cost of setting up industry will be too high. Already most of these industry, you'll say they don't set up in urban areas, they will find some rural area far away. Why? Because cost of land will be too high. In any case, the government also does it. So they do give some rebate in taxation if you go and set up in Northeast or Himachal or other places. So that can be very easily done. I don't see that is as big a problem as it is made to be.
Okay. Any other? Sir, you can.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So, I'm Pravalika and I have heard about you just going against the Delhi government system and all.
Yes.
So, since the time that we have been studying, like from our schooling and all, lot of systems in the education has changed. Like
Right.
maybe NEPCC methods and the number of people who are working with education system
Right.
and the number of NGOs who are closely working with government. So many things are happening.
Right.
But still we are critical about it.
Right.
And we are still engaging in the very hot debates of education system.
Right.
So even I am hearing the same thing from you. But right now I want to hear, like, as a policy advisor, what are the few policies which you suggest to the government to be implemented?
Yes, that's what I wanted, because everyone we are telling there are the problems, there are loopholes, corruption phases were there. So as a policy maker, so what policies you suggest to make this system run efficiently?
Okay, as I said, certainly we talk about solution, and most of the time I'm also here, I intentionally am being much more critical so that you guys could also start thinking critically and start asking objective questions. So in terms of solution, so the first step towards the right solution is, as I said, have you diagnosed the element right? And that is why we have to be critical most of the time, so that we did good diagnosis and thereafter we think of solution. As I said, in terms of recommendation, and also would you know that new education policy is being drafted. So we had given some suggestion to the central government also. In fact, when Delhi government was created, they had created something called DDC, Delhi Dialogue Committee. The idea was that Delhi Dialogue Committee would work like a Niti Aayog for the state government and will give a lot of policy input. And we were, not me individually, but many of my known people were involved, and we had given some good suggestions, which was completely changed, not adopted, and something else was adopted, we'll say on the whims and fancy, which works in politics. For me, as I simple said, for Delhi, what is the per child expenditure? The per child expenditure in government school per year is roughly 66,000 rupees, which means roughly 5,000 rupees a month the state government is spending on educating each of the student enrolled in the school. Now 5,000 rupees is a huge amount. So I would once again say, as I said, for me 100 rupees is an expenditure. I don't really mind if you make 10 rupees as a profit and give me good quality education, and I'm sending to some not-for-profit school which is not giving me as good quality of education and also running in loss, right? For me that doesn't matter. So what I would suggest as a first step is they should go for what is called per child funding. Now here is another rule of policy making. What we say, conflict of interest.
Okay.
What is it, conflict of interest? Meaning the service provider and the monitor should not be the same organization. For an example, if I give a talk here and you ask me, Amit, you rate yourself how good you did the talk, I give 5 out of 5, right? So there has to be a third party doing it. So those who are currently, the way education system is designed, government decides the curriculum, decides who will teach it, decide what question to be asked, announces the result, does the evaluation, give the certificate, fund it, everything is done. And therefore, because I am doing everything, I can manipulate easily. And this is what is happening actually. Let me take the example from, let's say, Bihar. The toppers are being investigated. The state toppers are being investigated. How come you become the topper and you cannot read and write and can't even tell what subject you topped in, right? So that kind of big manipulation happens and no one would know until you have the time and energy like me to closely, like a dog watching everything together. And therefore this role has to be separated. Government should provision for it, let's say you fund it, but you get out of delivering it, find an efficient deliver. And that is where I see can be a lot of combination of PPP can come up. I'm not saying only one kind of combination will work. Maybe you would require 100 kinds of combination to work in different geographies, different localities, different model. We need to move towards a customized service delivery. Education is learning. Also, we should not use this word education. Learning is very personalized experience, an individual. And until personalized teaching services is coming, it's not going to work. So standardization is killing the education system, it's killing the creativity in each child that it has. So it has to come up with a system which provides personalized education.
So the monitoring system should be strengthened.
First thing I said is have the different roles. So you can't do everything, you create different bodies for doing it. Second thing, look for the value of money, how it gives you best return on your investment. If you as an NGO are going to grassroots, why can't I fund you to provide education rather than looking for those my schools and teachers what I have approved of, if you are giving better quality. So I'll say, decide your per child expenditure, give it to the students and parents directly, let them choose the kind of education they want. I think that will empower them directly. That's number one. Have that different roles for different bodies, not everything that government can do. Have better governance and accountability management. Third thing is devolution of policy design, as close it can come to people. So let local people, either school management committee, like the parents or the school or the district level education planning has to happen. Any planning that is coming from Delhi to Hyderabad or Hyderabad going to rural areas and districts is bound to fail.
Education change in the country right now only comes through systemic changes. So we can't wait for it to change, because a day delay in the systemic changes, a village goes behind by 10 years. Okay, so I might look like a pessimist, but I think it's broken and it's more costly to revive it. So to improve, all the options I can see are the bottom-up approach. So what are the ways an individual can contribute to this education, like me? And do we have a full-fledged alternate curriculum that civil society organizations could implement in local schools?
So when I said it is a fraud and massive scale of fraud, but then you need to ask question, India is still growing. Let's say we were growing by 8%, now we are growing by 5%, but still growing. The society is growing. We are getting more goods. We are able to speak better English. We are able to do things better. How is that happening? That should be the first question. When this is such a bad system, which I gave you a very pessimistic view, how come still things happening? It's happening because of individuals like you who asked this question and took the effort. So India also has a massive amount of private schooling system. I'm not saying I'm also not a great champion. They also have their limitations and shortcomings, but they are certainly a notch better, at least in some parameters, whatever. That is another debate. So there are many individuals who took the responsibility. They did not wait for government to come with their education system or delivery. Go to any rural area in the country, and I have also traveled a lot, and specifically in the field. Most of the villages you will find some, let's say in North India, Lala Ram charitable school, on the name of some individual. Who are those people? Someone's grandfather or etc. who has built that school because they really wanted education, a school in their village, and they could not wait for government to come up with a 5-year planning, have the resources, etc., etc. So they started school because they thought it is important. Similarly, missionary schools. Still go to any second tier, third tier cities, the best school to go to is a missionary school that people are going. Not everywhere, there are many good schools as well. So what I am saying is, even after that, roughly today, 50% students go to government school, but there are 50% going to private school as well. And those happen to be severe. And those I am saying, many of them, there could be fraud there as well. And there are actually. But there are many people like you who said, we take the responsibility of providing education, and that is already happening. You would have heard of Teach for India campaign. That is an individual led. So Shahin Mistry decided, okay, there is enough to complain about, what can we do? So, okay, get all these graduates, send them to school, and they kind of start teaching while the paid teachers are on vacation or whatever, right?
And what is the curriculum they follow?
Okay, curriculum is also one thing. So there are within the system also things that can make you hopeful. And at the end of the day, I also have to be optimistic, otherwise I cannot continue to be pessimist and work in the sector, right? And there are enough reasons to be hopeful as well. So the curriculum thing is, the good thing is, we have different boards. You know how many educational boards that we have in India? Roughly 14. Because each state has its own state education board. Then you have the CBSE board, then you have ICSE board. Recently a new board started in Maharashtra. Then you have open school board, then you have IB. You can bring another like Cambridge education system also and set up as a board and do this. You can create also. So one thing is for the requirement. So once I was interacting with a teacher, who is a principal in a school in Assam, and he says 6 months I teach students with the curriculum, with the concept that I thought, to make them understand. But rest of the time, rest of my 3-4 months of education, I teach them how to score well in the exam. So people figure out their ways. There is curriculum available, and there are good professionals also available to design the curriculum according to what you think right. So it can be done and very easily done. There are people already doing it.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Yogi. Sir, many people saying that the semester examination system is pressure for the studying. So what are the changes should bring in the education system?
Okay. Once again, see, if you guys want to understand things from policy perspective, two things: be critical, and one of my favorite dialogue: give your thought a second thought. So the first question you ask yourself is, why was system? What was the system before semester system? What wrong was that in the previous system, and why the semester system was evolved? And what bad it is doing, and then what alternative you will suggest, right? So the key thing is you don't go back to previous mistakes that already have been done. So removing completely semester system may not be a great idea. But the thing is, there people giving pressure and taking pressure will be under pressure in whatever system you have, right? So you also have to think of, but as a system level, I'll say why there is only one kind of syllabus, one kind of semester system. Why can't we think of, when I'm saying personalized education, different, let's say 100 models to deliver the same curriculum, right? Which could be a system model and which could not be, semester model, which cannot be semester model. So you may have one VJIET which gives you BTech degree but follows semester system. There is a VJIT which does not give the same degree but does not follow. And those, according to their own ability, can choose one of those. But that would require enough number of service providers. So the question to ask here is, do we have enough number of service providers? I see a huge supply and demand gap. Recently in Chennai, it was in news, parents had queued up outside the school all night so that in morning when the school opens, they are able to get admission form. Not even to admission form lene ke liye queue up. Why? Because there are not enough number of good schools where there is a demand. Why it is not? Because some people regulate it, control it, that we would not allow more schools to open. Because whatever quality of education, if it goes to every hand, may not serve their purpose, political purpose.
How can we improve the quality of teaching among the teachers?
Quality of?
Teaching among the teachers.
How can we improve?
Yeah.
Get those into teaching profession who wants to be a teacher. The thing is, today we have a system where everyone is getting into teaching profession who does not like teaching or who is not a teacher. His aspiration has never been a teacher. What is his aspiration? If it is a government school, safe and secure job, which is roughly half a day job. I'm sorry to be too critical, but please let me be. Right? Roughly half a day job, 200 days working. अभी तो summer में भी उन्हें करना पड़ता है. But roughly it's an easy, घर के पास, easy job, safe and secure. You get like 6th, 7th pay commission kind of thing, and you are not as now there is increasing pressure there as well. But the thing is, those who are entering, who are looking for a government safe job, they are not the people who wants to be the great teacher, right? That is what is happening in government schools. And in private schools, when you don't find a job, you apply for to be a teacher. Right? You want to be engineer, doctor, startup, everything, but you don't really want to be a teacher. When you find there is no other option, you say, okay, teacher ban jate hain local school mein, right? So the way system is designed, you are getting wrong people as a teacher.
Some policy has to be strengthened, no, sir, to identify this kind of people?
Exactly, has to be.
Because if there is no option, there is choosing teacher as an option, then there is a policy should strike off that option, right?
That means government job has become a glamorous thing, is it?
Okay, chalo wo bhi ho gaya. Let's say, let me give you some data. From policy perspective, right? Number one, there are still roughly 10 million teachers position, 10 million not, 10 lakhs meaning 1 million, is vacant in India. Maybe there is shortage of teachers. Even by recruiting the wrong teachers also there is shortage. That's number one. Number two, those who are teacher, they may also not be competent and qualified teacher. When Right to Education Act came, it says mandatory qualification, and thereafter TET was introduced, teacher eligibility test. And we have the B.Ed degree as mandatory. So when you do the B.Ed degree, then only you say you are a trained teacher. And so interesting here is, once you have completed your degree, then you are asked to take the TET, teacher eligibility test. Right? It's like once you have done MBBS, then you say, okay, take the medical exam test, so that then only you will be able to practice. Which means then what were you teaching in there? And you know, passing percentage in TET, all these B.Ed qualified. Recently it was done in Tamil Nadu, 95% people who were qualified failed. 95% teachers B.Ed qualified who took the test failed, only 5% qualified. So those who are in job are also not competent, that is what I am saying. Third, World Bank did a study. World Bank did a study wherein they find on an average, on any ordinary day, 25% of the teachers are absent. They just don't show up. And those who are in the school, many times they complain about that they have to manage, administer the midday meal or attendance or administrative or poll duty or census duty or whatever. So the teacher today is doing almost everything else than teaching job, and that is the situation we have landed up in. And that is why I am trying to be more critical, so that you guys actually first recognize how big this problem is. And therefore this little bit of tinkering is not going to help. You need to systematically change. You need to bring that big bang reform, right? The small little policy change is not going to help in any ways.
In education system, school days, while studying, do you have in your policy system, do you have any financial knowledge adding in school days?
Financial knowledge in school days.
Yeah.
Oh, so Delhi itself, Delhi once again we can talk about, they introduced something called entrepreneurship curriculum. So they started teaching about it, and some effort have been done. Not only in government side, even private school. I know a school in Goa, which actually their aspiration is to, it's a primary school from standard 1 till 12, but their ideal is that we don't want to, they want to be the hub of the entrepreneurs of future. So they say we design the curriculum, we run the school, from the school right from the beginning they teach entrepreneurship, so that from here our graduates can go out and become the great entrepreneurs. So it's happening, it's slow, it may not be as visible, but it's happening.